Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Wion. I am from the United States. I live in Chicago, and I was invited out here to share some perspectives on how we are using social media in the U.S., and hopefully that will provide some ideas for how here could use it more effectively. So I'll start off and introduce a little bit about myself. I have been working in digital media since about 1996 when I built my first website. And I've been working in social specifically since about 2006. As Darko mentioned, I worked for McDonald's in the United States, where I was head of social media within that area. And then I've also worked with other companies, large and small, in that time. So I've worked with chemical companies, pharmaceutical companies, all kinds of different organizations, along with charities and NGOs as well. So where I would like to start off is, I think it's important when people talk about social media, oftentimes they focus on Facebook and Twitter, and oftentimes there's a rush that says, oh, I'm gonna put up a Facebook page. And while I think the tools are important, what I think is more important that people don't talk about as often is the behaviors of how people use the tools. Because at the end of the day, it's not so much about posting on Facebook, it's about the connections that people have when they post together on Facebook. Understanding what makes people want to share something and how to motivate people to share something, how to get people to click on a link or to take advantage of an offer. That's where you're really going to have the most success if your social plans are set up in a way to try to motivate and get someone to do something rather than just posting contents. Well, I'll just keep moving. So one of the questions that I get all the time is, why do people want to share something in the first place? It's very important to do this because as human beings, we're literally wired to be able to share. People want to feel appreciated and accepted. People want to show the things that are important to them in life, whether it's their children, or it's eating their favorite foods, or drinking their favorite wine. All those things are the types of things that people want to share. And it might sound a little old-fashioned, but you can, if you think about it from a psychological perspective, the psychologist Maslow talked about the hierarchy of being. And people need to feel this love and belonging. They need to feel a part of something. Oftentimes, that's what makes memes and viral things happen, is because people have decided that there's an idea that they want to associate themselves with, and they will want to be a part of it. Then we think about it from the business perspective. One of the most common questions I get is, how do I convince my bosses that we should be using social media? And I think it's important to not talk about social media for the sake of social media, but talk about social media in terms of how it can be a tool for your business. And a tool can be used for many different ways and many different purposes. Most people think about it in terms of marketing, communications. So you can use social media to reach audiences that are increasingly hard to reach because there's so many things out there that people are using to consume their time. You can use it for communications to enhance the speed and accuracy with the information that you're putting out there. You can learn from customers. At McDonald's, we did a lot of online research looking at what people are saying on Twitter to understand how people feel about our company. And then we actually made changes to how we market and our products based on what we learned from people on Twitter as well. And then customer service. The ability for a company to Twitter to answer someone who had a bad experience, to talk to somebody who's complaining and make them happy again is important as well. Thanks, bud. So go on. Which button should I use? Okay. So one of the important trends that I think everyone should be probably aware of, if you're not already, is the importance of pictures in photography. Over the few days that I've been here, I've had the opportunity to talk with several different groups, including many students at the university. And what was interesting is a lot of times I'll ask, okay, show of hands, who's on Facebook, who's on Twitter, and those things. And what we found is probably about 15–20% of people are on Twitter, but nearly twice as many people are on Instagram. And this is important because what that demonstrates is that people are using pictures to communicate as much as they are using words right now as well. And that also means that people can communicate in different ways. You don't have to be a great writer to be able to express yourself using pictures. I've also done some studies that have demonstrated and tweet something from the McDonald's handle and from other handles that I've looked at as well. If you tweet something that's just text, you get a certain amount of in retweets and like. When you tweet something with a picture, you get even more. And then we also found when you use the Instagram filters to make a picture even prettier, then you get more engagement of that as well. So to demonstrate that, let me talk about how I communicate who I am myself through pictures. So I am. Is there a place I should be pointing this? There it is. Okay. So as I mentioned, I'm from Chicago. This is the town where I live. I really. Where should I? Okay, so yeah, can you just watch me on this? So I really like Star Wars. I like Star Wars so much that when we make things that look like Star Wars characters for my kids, I am a dad. This is my little, and my other son really loves baseball, which is unfortunate because the baseball team in Chicago is really bad, really terrible. This is me at the end of most games. And I'm happy. I'm excited to be here in Macedonia. This is my first time to the country. I've met a lot of great people. Everyone's super friendly. I also have discovered a new favorite in Macedonia, skapsko. Of course, that was one of the first things I learned to do was how to order a skapsko. So now in 30 seconds, you know a little bit more about me, but those pictures tell a whole lot more about me as well. And so this is an area I think that is extremely important because another question I receive all the time is, well, you know, for a brand, what should I do first? Should I do all the social media sites or should I just do one or two? And my recommendation oftentimes is to start with just one or two. Because if you think about it this way, if you do 10 things, if you try to do 10 things all at once, you'll probably do 3 or 4 of them really well, and the other 6 or 7 not well. So if you focus on 1 or 2 things, you're more likely to be successful. And I think that focusing on how you can use pictures to tell your story, whether you are telling your own story of your own personal life or the story of a brand in the company, I think I would definitely look at Instagram and starting with pictures as the way to go. Another very important trend is that I think folks should focus on that speaks to the idea of behaviors in social media is the idea of thumb scrolling. So thumb scrolling is really the convergence of 2 main trends that are going on. I'm sure it's not a surprise to anyone that the use of mobile devices it continues to increase. In fact, in many regions of the world, people access social media sites more from a mobile device than they do from an actual desktop computer. And in fact, most of the time, so who holds their phone like this, right? Not many people. Everybody does it one-handed, usually like this. This is me and my friends, okay? And what's important to think about that is your thumb is the most important thing in terms of you being able to be social with people. And what's important to understand from a marketing perspective is the idea of thumb scrolling. So your thumb is the device that's in charge. And then as you are scrolling through your feed, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or whatever, there's all these images going by. And so as a marketer, you need to figure out how can I express myself? How can I use a picture to make somebody want to stop? So the new measurement of attention in social really is the ability to stop, thumb scroll, and get someone to pay attention. And using a picture oftentimes is the way to get someone to pay attention. And we see this on any on any social site that's out there, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they all have that feed motion, and you're always using your thumb scroll to advance and get through to whatever next content. And so as a marketer, think of it this way too. You're competing, your story is having to compete with pictures of kittens and the parties that someone went to last night, and food and babies and things. And so it's not just how do I stand out against my competition, it's how do I stand out against my competition and all the other things that people are looking at in their devices, which makes it sound really challenging, and it is. But if you think in that mindset of, all right, I've got to be as good as the funny cat video, then you'll start to change your perspective on how you want to put your stories together. Okay. Another important trend that we see in the US is using social media for customer service. And in this case, it really is just if a customer is unhappy and they tweet about it, how do you make them happy again? And so I've got a quick story here that's one of my favorite examples of this. So this is Evan. Evan is a 4-year-old boy in the United States. And like most little kids, he loves toys. He likes his Happy Meals from McDonald's. And he was collecting a full set of Happy Meal toys. And so his mother found out that the promotion was about to end, and he didn't have all the toys yet. So she went to the drive-thru, bought him his Happy Meal, and they're driving away, and she looks up in the rearview mirror, and Evan's crying. And she goes, "Evan, honey, what's wrong?" And he goes, "Mom, I got the girl's toy." And he's devastated. Now, he's a 4-year-old, so getting a girl's toy instead of a boy toy, that's huge in his world. In the world of McDonald's, they serve millions of people every day. A little boy with a little upset boy is a minor problem, but it's really important to his mom. Okay, I've got little boys. Once they're upset, they're mad, they're sad, and therefore you are, the parent is mad and sad too. And so what happened in this case is the mom didn't turn around and go back to the restaurant, and she didn't pick up the phone and call either. She went on Twitter and said, "Hey, McDonald's, do you know what it does to a little boy to get the girl's toy when he wanted the boy's toy? In other words, thanks, McDonald's, you ruined my day, I hate you." So luckily, we have a customer service team, and they have a Twitter handle that they use to reach back out to people. And in this case, we reached back out to her, and then we sent her a little note. We have cards that we printed up that say, "You tweeted, we listened." And so in those cases where we need to send a letter or a coupon to someone to say that we're sorry, we'll write out on the back, "Hey, we're sorry, here's a coupon, and please give us another chance." And this has proven really powerful because, first of all, no one gets anything in the post anymore that's not a bill or junk mail. And so to get a handwritten note from a large corporation, people are really surprised by it. In fact, a number of times we see if we give a coupon out, then somebody goes back to the restaurant and then they get their food and they take a selfie with their food and they say, "Hey, McDonald's messed up, but they also fixed it." And that's really great. In this case, we sent Wolverine, which was the missing toy. And so everyone was happy. And he smiles all around. He was good to go. Oh, skipped one. So he was happy. Things recovered. Evan's mom is a blogger. Her blog is widely read, about 50,000 readers. She wrote a blog post called "Hey McDonald's, I'm loving it," all about the story that I just mentioned. And so now the fact that we messed up once and we fixed it has now been seen by 50,000 people in the United States. So it's a really powerful tool for us. Which brings me to my next point, which is part of the reframing that people need to do who work in social media, again, is not just let's go post it on Facebook or let's go post it on Twitter. It's finding the ways that you can be useful and helpful for people. So in this case, we were using social media to solve a problem. The problem was that we had upset customers. And so how do we fix upset customers, we take our customer service professionals who have been trained in how to deal with upset customers and put them on Twitter and then let them take care of things. There's a really good book by my friend Jay Baer that's written all about this. And the perspective is that for a business to stand out, to get followers, to get people to pay attention, you can't just post random stuff. You need to figure out how you can be useful to your customers and other folks as well. Okay, so what this all means then is that really, I hate to say it, in most cases, people don't care about what you post. They care about how you make them feel. As I mentioned before, you're competing with cat videos and with the updates of friends. And so you need to find that usefulness, that utility that you can provide to organizations to really make them successful in social media. So another question that I get is, all right, well, we don't have, we're not a large company. We don't have a budget to get 1 million followers. What else can we do? And another perspective that I like to share is it's important to think of social media not in terms of how do I get 1 million followers. It's how do I tap into the social networks that are already existing. And what I mean by that is each one of you in this audience today, you are a social network all on your own. You have a couple hundred friends on Twitter or on Facebook. Each one of those is like its own circle of friends and influence that you control. Now, your circle and your circle are going to be different circles. They might overlap. You might have some common friends, but most often they're going to be different sets of people. And so where companies have had a great success is not necessarily trying to get 1 million followers on Facebook, but trying to figure out, okay, how do I get one person to share something in their circle, and then it hops to the next circle. I can get those people to share something. Because then you can have an impact that easily reaches millions, even if you only have 200 followers or 300 followers. A really good example of this, which I think most folks are familiar with, is the Ice Bucket Challenge. This was not a program that had $1 million budget. It's not something that was supported with a TV commercial. It's something that literally started as a grassroots effort with small groups of people challenging one another to dump a bucket of ice on their head. It was successful in the sense that pretty much everyone saw it, but it turned into literally a global phenomenon. A study that I found said that there were probably about 12 million videos posted and $120 million raised from this effort. So that's roughly $9.50, $9.57 raised for each post. So obviously a really great success. But why did that work? How did that work? What can a company learn from that? I think the first thing to understand is that it worked because it was highly personal. When you made a video, you challenged friends, and that challenge aspect of it is what got it to pass from one small network of friends to the next small network of friends, and so on and so on. So when I made my video, it was, okay, I'm going to challenge Joe and Dan and Jessica. And if you guys don't do this, then you're scared or you don't want to do it. And that networking through friends is what really carried this along without some sort of huge advertising budget to go with it. It had celebrity support as well. So, you know, everybody from Justin Bieber, George Bush, LeBron James, all these celebrities started adopting it and posting their videos as well. That didn't happen until after it got to a certain level from all of the grassroots efforts. And so that's something, you know, not everyone is going to have a celebrity that they could tap for a campaign. But if you're working with an NGO and you have some influencer, some person who has a lot of Facebook friends or 1,000 followers on Twitter, that might be your celebrity. That could be the person that you really want to work with and say, hey, can you help us share this content? And then obviously the charitable hook for this worked as well. So another example of a small network. You know, I mentioned Scopscope before. This is an app that is called Untapped. Untapped is the app for people who enjoy interesting beers from around the world. And so with this app, what you do is your check-in, your status update is what beer you are drinking. And so in that middle section there, it becomes, that shows the last 4 beers that I had had. Not all at once, mind you, but over the course of a weekend. And so this becomes like a diary. So, you know, much like a sommelier or wine person will have a diary of notes of what wines they like and what notes and characters they think are most interesting, this app does the same thing. Another feature of this app is that if you drink a certain beer that has a promotion going on, you can unlock a badge. Like, that's the last picture there. So there's badges. And what's really interesting about this app is this app doesn't have an advertising budget. I've never seen a commercial for it. I've never seen an ad on Facebook for this app. People know about it from friends of friends. And so I have several friends who are craft beer guys. They're beer snobs. And so one of them introduced me to this app, and now I follow them, and I'm much more likely to buy a certain type of beer based on their influence. Okay. Oh, lost our slides. So, okay, I'll keep going. One of the other questions I get all the time is, how do you deal with upset people? So, you know, oftentimes people use social media to complain, to be snarky, to try to be mean, to attack brands. And that really is, it's unfortunate, but that's a reality that we have to deal with. And I think what's important to be able to deal with this is to put a very solid plan together for crisis management. And there's lots of studies that show how and why people will do this, but really I think the way to start is to look at why people are complaining, and then what motivations are prompting them to complain, and then try to fix it. Okay, we're back. Are you back up? Okay. Did you go forward one? Okay, so while we're waiting for that, so at McDonald's, the way that we would deal with a crisis is, first thing that we would do is we would try to understand when someone is complaining, who are they and what are they complaining about? And we had kind of a triage or triangle system set up where we would examine, okay, the complaints and then figure out 3 different ways to deal with it. So the first category of complainers were people who were customers who went to the restaurant and had a bad experience. So the food was cold, or they, or the order was wrong, or maybe the manager was rude. And in those cases, we had our customer service team who we would deploy. They would go on Twitter and then answer the person and make them happy again. Another category of people is folks who just plain don't like our company. Maybe they're vegetarian and they think anybody who eats beef is wrong. Or it's maybe somebody who thinks multinational corporations are bad. And in those cases, we actually would not respond to them. We would ignore them. And for a couple of reasons. We realized that every hour that we would spend trying to convince someone that we're not so bad would be an hour wasted. Because the people who, like a vegetarian who just doesn't want people to ever eat beef, they're never going to be a customer of McDonald's. So any time spent trying to convince them otherwise is simply time that is wasted. Then additionally, there's the issue of sometimes if someone yells at you or says something bad about you and you respond to them, then they're going to want to keep going. It's almost as if they threw a punch, you swung back, and now you're both in a fight. Just avoid the fight. It's sometimes easier said than done. I had to spend a significant amount of time talking with bosses at the company about, okay, here's why we're going to respond, or here's why we're not going to respond. Then the third category of dealing with a crisis is folks who are curious but skeptical about what goes on with our brand and with our company. So for example, a question that we get all the time is, what is in your hamburgers? Why is it so cheap? What's in a chicken nugget? Chickens aren't even formed that way. And so we put together a series of videos. We did this first in Canada. now in the US, and then also in Czech Republic, Germany, Australia, a couple other countries, where we've created a series of videos that go behind the scenes. They go to the farms and show cows and chickens and how the process of going from the farm to the table. So here's a chicken with feathers, and here's a chicken without feathers, and here's how a chicken gets cut up and how it gets made into chicken nuggets. And this has been very successful because it shows an openness and transparency. And at the end of such questions and answers, sometimes people have said, hey, you know what, I'm still not going to be a customer of yours, but they at least give the company credit for being open and trying to answer the question. So when a crisis happens, don't panic and freak out. That's the first thing that you should do. Another recommendation for dealing with a crisis is to do as much pre-planning as you can. Oftentimes, an organization, a company, will know the main things that could go wrong. And so having some sessions, some meetings, and some planning to go into and say, okay, if this one thing happens, what are the steps that we're going to do to react to it in social media? And then if this other thing happens, what are we going to do to react to that in social media? Going through that process, coming up with a plan is very, very important, so that when something bad does happen, everyone won't freak out. Now, you might not follow that plan step by step if something bad happens, but at least you've thought it through, and the whole process is a little bit less calm. And then, as I mentioned before, you don't have to respond to everything. I know that actually goes against some of the conventional wisdom. There's like the social media 101 that says you should respond to every single tweet that's out there. You don't. And it's something important to try to tell your bosses as well, that you don't have to take care of everything. Okay. So the next area, this is an awesome clicker. The next area that I'm going to talk about is measurements, and how do you measure social media. So this is an area that in the 6 years that I've been working in social media, I gotta tell you, I've never seen the exact perfect measurement strategy. And that's because there are just so many metrics that are out there. This chart is from Forrester Research, and it helps illustrate the problem. In that middle section there, in a study, 82% of companies are measuring social media in some way, shape, or form, but only 4% of companies are actually using that data in any meaningful sense. That means that between 82 and 4, there's a huge gap. That's a whole lot of money that's being wasted right now because people aren't sure where to go with metrics. And this problem is somewhat because of social itself. There are so many metrics that are out there. People are being flooded with data, but not data that's helpful or useful. And there's some other issues that are compounding the problem as well. So organic reach is dying. Some of you are probably aware, Facebook changed our algorithm to decide what shows up in your news feed every day. And basically, if you have a brand page, your ability to reach your fans dropped off almost to nothing in a very short time. Paid media, paid advertising is becoming more and more common on social media as well. So you can buy ads on Twitter, you can buy ads on Facebook now. Those bring a whole other set of metrics and numbers to them, but they don't necessarily provide any more clarity. Some studies have tried to find out what's the return on investment, what's the value of a fan or a follower. And those are good attempts to make some sense of the numbers, but they really still don't speak to actual sales or metrics as well. So another study that I think is very telling of the situation, Forrester Research, they have an annual awards ceremony that they conduct for the best social media campaigns. There were 95 entries to this award submission in 2013, and they looked at, and those awards cited 64 different metrics. 64 different metrics to prove success is way too many. It will be confusing for people who work in social media, and then for the folks that we report to as executives, it'll be even worse from them. So how do you make metrics count? Well, you need to start with metrics that are actually tied to something meaningful for the business. You need to have a plan to be able to interpret those things, and then you need to also have a plan for how you're going to share those overall. So here's a couple of ways that we've done this and how we've made it real. So we used to benchmark ourselves based solely on fans and followers against our competition. So you'll see in there, Starbucks, Subway, McDonald's, KFC, Crystal. We would say, okay, we have more followers than Burger King, so that means we're doing good. But then I would be challenged by my bosses who would say, okay, well, did that get us more sales? Did that tell us anything better about our difference? And the reality was that no, we couldn't find that correlation. In the entire time I was there, we were never able to draw a straight line from, okay, somebody tweets and then somebody goes and buys our food. We just don't think it existed. So what we were able to measure, though, was looking at the experience of people in the restaurant. And so at the end of every week, we would go into, can I get the next slide? We would go into our social media measurement system, and we would measure how many tweets did we get about the quality of food, about the service that people were getting. Because this was a way that we use social media to really help the business. We could understand, all right, how many happy customers do we have? Do people think the food is a good value? Do people think the food is a good price? The drive-through fast enough? Are the employees being nice? So we would rate ourselves with different trend lines, and then we'd also rate ourselves with different scoring mechanisms. And in this way, we were able to show that the best use of social was not necessarily to try to get more sales, but to help customers who are upset with customer service, and then also measure our stores themselves and see how they were performing also. Okay. So the main things that we would look at is quality. Was the order right? Service. Was the staff friendly? Was the drive fast enough? Is it priced right? These are the measures that we would be looking for. And we would see hundreds of tweets every single week about these very issues. And then we say, okay, this week we had 500 tweets about service. Last week we had 600 tweets about slow service. So the trend is getting better, or the trend is getting worse. And then that information would then be sent to the restaurant managers and operations folks who are in charge of running the restaurant, so that they could be better informed how people thought that they were doing as well. So another way to use metrics, to find the right metrics for measuring social, is to tie them to actual marketing goals. And so in this case, there's two different ways that we've done this. If you think about kind of the classic marketing funnel example, you need to build awareness for your brand, you need to get people to try your product, and then you need people to think about it. Those three areas, social affect all of those. And so in the example on the left, we had a new item, chicken wings, that we were going to be putting on the menu. So we used social media to build awareness of this. So we had a couple famous athletes in the United States, and we enlisted them to help us talk about chicken wings. So they tweeted about it. They posted pictures on their Instagram pages about it. They put things on Facebook. And so in that case, we weren't trying to use social media to do everything. We were trying to do it on one very specific focused thing, in this case, which was building awareness. In the example on the right, we use social media to be able to drive trial, to get people to try to buy a sandwich. This is something that we did in a local area where there was a pork sandwich called the McRib. And we asked people, why don't you try a McRib? And everyone who does and takes a selfie and tags McDonald's in it will be entered into a contest to win a prize. And so they got hundreds and hundreds of people taking pictures of themselves, posting a selfie and tagging McDonald's. And then from there, we were able to draw that straight line. This number of pictures posted, and then this number of sales of the items in the restaurant. Then another way that we would use metrics is to make our content better as well. So this is a very simple screenshot of the reports that we would use. At the end of the week, we would go through our Twitter stream and look and see which posts did the best, which posts did the worst. And then we would ask ourselves, what did the best, and let's do more of that, and what didn't perform so well, and let's do less of that. It's a very simple thing to do, but it takes some time and dedication to do it on a consistent basis. But it will help, because over time you'll start to realize, oh, in this case, pictures of food are some of our best tweets. It's probably not surprising for a restaurant company, but people actually want to share pictures of food more often than tweets without a picture in it at all. So with that, I think that we're about out of time. I'll just say Thank you very much.
Yes, this one is working. Thank you, Rick, for the awesome presentation. I mean, I really like some parts with the measurement and stuff like that. I will start the questions part, but you feel free to join me, raise your hand, and we would really love to include as many of you in the question sessions. So first of all, I mean, yes, the social media one-on-one responds to everyone, to everyone. Just to get these things clear, tell us how many mentions McDonald's receives per day, for example.
Obviously, McDonald's is a very well-known brand. Last count, it was probably about 100,000 tweets per day that mentioned McDonald's.
So that's why you don't answer.
Yeah, that's why we can't respond to everyone. Even if we wanted to, there's just too many people.
The next one would be, of course, everyone's interested about crisis and how you deal with that. But my question would be, if a hashtag goes wrong, what do you do then?
So there's a couple of things that you can do. The first thing that I would make sure that you do is as quickly as possible write up what your version of the story is. So oftentimes if something's going viral, it's because everybody's trying to pile on to a story and take it in a certain way. So you need to have your side of the story out there. The other thing that you can do is on Twitter you can promote, you can pay to be associated with a certain hashtag. And in this method, you can post and have your tweet be at the top of the Twitter stream whenever someone searches for or looks at that hashtag. And this does require some budget, but the real benefit of that is if everybody's saying nasty things or negative things, you can't stop that, but at least your version of the story, your tweet, will be on top of everyone else's.
Okay, and how do you manage to create a team inside your company that deals with all this stuff? Is this a social media team, like separated from all different departments, or is this a layer on top of all different departments?
So the way that we had it set up, it was more of a layer of folks inside of different parts of the organization. So myself, I was part of the public relations team, the PR team. There were other social media folks who were in marketing, other social media folks in customer service. And I think that this served a couple different advantages. One is that because we were in the departments, we were part of those other teams, as opposed to being a separate team over off in a corner that didn't work with everybody else. Also, because we were part of the team, we were able to help teach other folks who weren't in social media about social media principles and how to write better for the web and how to use Twitter and how to make sense of it. So that was another benefit as well.
Well, I guess that this is my last question, I promise. I guess that many people here, I mean, have the feeling, yeah, that's a big company, it's a completely different story, it's easy out there, there are many people on Twitter and Facebook, so you can have this data and analyze it. How do you see this differently in several different aspects? I mean, big and small companies. Does it apply? You don't apply? I mean, of course, the basics are the basics, but how do you make use in such small markets, for example?
Sure. So I think from presentation, there's three things that I would highlight that I think are the same, whether it's a big company or a small company. I think setting up some sort of plan for customer service is essential. Even if you only have a few customers, one of them complaining can create an issue for you. And then oftentimes, if someone complains and you don't respond to them at all and try to make the situation better, it sounds like you're just ignoring them or that you have something to hide. So I think customer service is the first aspect that I would look at. Number two is thinking about how to influence individual social networks, the small things like the Ice Bucket Challenge, rather than trying to say, okay, well, we've got to go get 10,000 followers on Facebook. And then the third area is around the measurement. Everything that I showed you here today, it doesn't take it's not very complicated. There's free tools out there to help you measure things. what it does take is time and dedication.
Thank you. Questions? You can ask them in English, in Macedonian, however you want. There's one there.
It's there, but there is also here one.
Okay,
so
sorry.
Henrik, I have one question, and it's related to the employees, because you were engaged with McDonald's, which is a company which employs a 6-digit number of employees, and then you were engaged, as far as I know, from our dinnering with Gap and with some other also blue chip companies. So the question is related to the power of employees. Do you have experience with the structured way of using the employees, the power of employees with the social media? So in terms of raising awareness or making some trial campaigns, or even more important in the service part of the usage of social media. So guidelines, structured approach, and so on. Whether this is your practice.
Yes,
Thanks.
yes. We've done that, and this is a really important point. The employees of a company should definitely be part of the social media plan. Oftentimes, they're a great way to start off something. So, in the experience of McDonald's, oftentimes people would ask me about the company, not because I was in social media, but just because I worked there. And so what we did is we put some mechanisms in place to provide employees with information. And this could be information about, hey, there's something new on the menu. I'm so excited and proud to be part of this company because we're launching something new, or because we're doing charity work, or if there was a crisis going on, telling our employees, here's the situation, and then here's what you can share with all of your friends. That was also very powerful, because oftentimes people might be more willing to believe and trust something that they know from a friend who works for a company than something that they see on the news from the PR person for the company. But to put this in place, you need some policies that allow your companies to talk about the brand or the organization. You also need to give them the information that they can share as well, because you want to make sure that people are sharing the right information and they're not just making something up and accidentally posting the wrong thing. But this, again, is something that McDonald's has done it, Gap has done it, many companies have done it, but it doesn't have to be something just for a large company. It's something that small companies can do. If you have 5 employees, each one of those 5 employees is going to have their friends on Facebook, their friends on Twitter, and those are areas that you can use to start off your social media campaign.
Have another question there?
Yes. Hi, I'm Nina here. I'm Nina from Grouper. It's a daily deal site in Macedonia. I wanted to ask you regarding you mentioned how you settled the story with the mother and the toy. So we do solve customer complaints and situations as well, more or less like the way that you explained by the book, maybe. But I wanted to ask you, does it affect the way that you handle the situation, the position of the customer? So you said she was a blogger, 50,000 followers read the blog. So would the decision and the message on the card be different if she wasn't anything, if she wasn't on social media? Do you search the profile of the user when you answer the question, when you send the card, when you send the toy? And does it affect your decision? I mean, if she wasn't anything on social media, would she get the same reply and the same product?
Sure. When we started, we would definitely screen in that way. And we had a threshold in place that if someone didn't have more than 100 followers, that we wouldn't respond. But over time, we increased the amount of customer service persons that we had working there, so we were able to handle everyone. So now there's no more filter in there. If you have 1 follower and you complain about something bad in the restaurant, then the team will get back to you.
Thank you.
We have questions. Sorry, we have to have a microphone because of the sorry.
Do you schedule out your campaigns in advance, and how far in advance do you do them across networks?
Sure. So typically, yes, trying to do as much in advance as possible. We'll usually be about a month ahead in terms of creating a campaign, writing tweets and things. That's necessary partially because there's several different people who need to review and approve things. So there's the PR staff, there's marketing teams. A lot of the stuff needs to be reviewed by a lawyer as well. And so we need to work ahead of time so that we've got everything in place so that when the day comes, we've got materials ready to go. But at the same time, that working ahead of time also allows us to be able to respond quickly, so that if something blew up today, if there was some sort of crisis or issue this morning, we could move quickly and respond to it, typically within a half an hour.
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Mary. I work in social media agency Kaigana. I wanted to ask, you said you need to work out a plan for responding to complaints. But, okay, you do that by the book, you apologize, you give them a free product, but that's the happy end. What if there is no happy end? Like, they are not satisfied, they are still complaining, they are angry, maybe they just like the attention. What do you do then? Do you keep responding? Do you keep making excuses or apologizing, telling them what went wrong? Yeah. That's the real question. What do you do when they're just not stopping with the complaints?
Yeah, that's a tough situation, and it has happened from time to time where somebody they keep complaining and nothing you can do seems to make them stop complaining. As part of your plan, you need to ask yourself, how much will we be willing to give? How many times can someone complain before we say, you know what, we've tried? Interesting phenomenon that we've seen, though, too, is when people complain and complain and complain and complain, that's a public thing. And so as a company, you don't want to, you want to make people happy, you don't want to deal with complainers. Sometimes the more that someone complains, the worse that they look. And you'll see this in discussion forums sometimes when somebody just keeps going and keeps being angry. At some point, someone else will say, "Hey, get over it. It's not, it's not a big deal." And you can't rely on that in every situation. But my recommendation is, as you're putting a plan together, ask yourself, "Hey, is 5 tweets enough? At what point do we say, hey, you know what? We're not going to make this person happy, so we just got to cut our losses and go."
Yeah.
I have a very short question. Do you delete
You need a
posts?
microphone.
I don't need it. Do you delete posts?
Typically not. I mean, we have deleted a post in the past if we changed our mind or we realized that there's a typo or something. But generally, no, we don't delete posts.
Not yours. Posts from the customers.
Oh, on Facebook.
Like it, for example.
Yes. So on Facebook, the only posts that we delete are posts that have profanity or are racist or bullying. If someone just comes and says, "Hey, McDonald's, I think your food's terrible," we leave it. Well, because to take it down would make it seem as if we only think that people say nice things about us, and it would be disingenuous. It would not be reflective of reality.
Thank you. Any more questions? Maybe the last one there.
Hi, thank you for the lovely presentation. I want to ask you or give us a hint about the strategies concerning the competitors, like Subway and everything. What you do in some ways to strategize the approach and beating the competition.
So what I mentioned before, I think it was that last slide about looking at what posts do the best. That was something that our team examined, but that's something that you can very easily apply to the competition as well. Because especially on Twitter, you can see how many retweets and likes a certain post has. So that same analysis of let's look at all the posts over the course of a week or a month, see which ones did better, and then either follow that same strategy or do a different strategy. You can definitely do that when it comes to your competition.